Hey crew, let's go ahead and make some sheet metal letters. I'm going to give you a little overview on how this K was made, and then I will try to recreate most pieces of it, or most of the features, and kind of show you how it's not all necessarily one solid body. And then once all those parts and pieces are made, how do we get everything to be able to unfold and see it and create a drawing so that we can laser it and then actually make these letters. So with that being said, the first thing I want to do is a quick overview on how this K was made. And this particular K, I just drew from scratch. I want all the letters to be at least 6 inches tall, and then I just went ahead and put my proportions on it and what I thought looked right to make that the shape I thought it should be. I know a lot of people will use Microsoft Word or Adobe Illustrator, and they will go in and find a font they like, and I'm going to suggest relatively blocky as we're starting out, whether it's like an Arial font, or actually I found this Hunger Games as well, which is kind of similar, but it breaks up some of the letters to maybe be a little flatter in spots, so maybe that's a little easier. You find one that you like, and let's go with it. Back over there. So what I did to get started was really draw the front of your letter first, okay? And that's going to kick this all off, and that'll be our part of our first solid. Now what's really important in the sheet metal is that the first solid here is the only thing that the flat pattern will recognize. So later on, when I start creating some of these other solids to fill in my gaps, they're not going to show up in the flat pattern, and I'll talk about that later. But we're going to make the front of our letter first. We're going to put a flange on the back, or on this back side over here, that connects what I imagine would connect the front surface to the back surface. Some people use the bottom or tops. It just really depends on your letter and where you think that's the most logical place to hook them together. And then we'll do the back side, and then we start adding some basic flanges where we can, and do as much as the flat pattern will allow before things start to intersect with one another, perhaps, okay? Like for example, I can't fill in these V's with part of this material because there's just not enough space to get the material I need in there to fold back and cover up what I think should be. There we go. So with all that, the quick overview, like I said, then we have these other solid bodies, and that's important that you create those as separate bodies, because then we export these into other parts. And I'll, like I said, do a little demo on that in a minute. But without me rambling on any more than I usually do, let's get a new file started. So a sheet metal inch IPT. I'm going to start a new sketch, jump on this work plane there, and I'm going to hopefully right click and paste. And there I go. Sorry, I took a little shortcut. So otherwise what I would have done is just do a text box, drop in the letter with the font I want, and simply trace out that general shape, get rid of that font and letter, and make sure just lines that are collinear, that should line up, and try to make it nice as neat as possible. You have to have even edges when it comes to sheet metal and bending. Things line up, like the 2 top lines better be collinear, the 2 bottom lines better be collinear. And of course it just makes sense, like for me on the K, that one and that one also is collinear. So I'll finish sketch, zoom back out a little bit, and then let's do a face command to kind of do our first extrusion. Oh, and I forgot one thing. Actually, I can hit OK. We are going to change our sheet metal defaults though, because this is just way too thick, because we're technically using tagboard. So once we click on that default, we're going to uncheck this thickness rule, and we're going to change it to a 0.03. or 30 thousandths. 030 is 30 thousandths. And that is about the thickness of our tagboard. And click OK. And there, that looks more realistic. Now I know it's a little bit more of a chore, that you got to zoom in a little bit further to make sure you're getting the proper edges, but making this realistic is important, so it folds correctly and goes together like you want it to. Alright, so once that's done, let's do a flange on this other side. Right there, 1 inch minimum. If some people want to try and make 1.5 inch letters or so, 2 inches might be a little thick, but you're welcome to try. 1 inch minimum. And I'm not too worried about the bend. This is a simple one here. Hit OK. I'm going to zoom in on this little skinny edge here. Oop, highlight the whole surface to start another sketch. Zoom back out a little bit. And for me, I'm going to go project geometry and click on my K. And that should bring all the K line work back to this area. Finish sketch and face. Highlight that K. And I'm going to have it kick out the other way. So just paying attention to my extrusions. Click OK. And then last here, all I need to do now is the bend tool to connect those two surfaces. So bend tool, inner edge, click OK, and that is all connected. And that is actually, a pretty good chunk of the K done already. Now, granted, a lot of the rest of it's a little more tedious, but that is, I feel good getting that far right away. Create a flat pattern, and sure enough, it's unfolding. So that's a good sign as well. And I don't worry about that it's at a weird 45-degree angle for some reason. When we put it on the paper, we can straighten that all out later. Back to folded part. And then this is where we try to start just doing, the simple flanges, I guess I would call them. So flange at the top here, going out across. So I want to go up and over that one, so I play around with my bend positions. There we go, that looks good. 1 inch. Apply. And then I'll do another flange off that one. But I don't need this to go down 1 inch. Seems a little excessive, so I'm going to change this over to just 0.5. And that's what a lot of my tabs will be, is a 1/2 inch, where I'm going to be, thinking about where I'm going to glue or, glue them. I was going to say tape, but that doesn't look very good. So we're going to try to glue all these connections. And click apply and cancel. And just to make sure it looks like it's joining up, and that's not usually a good thing, but let's go to flat pattern. And hey, all right, that says it's still working so far. Right there's that extra flange, so we're good. If things do truly intersect, it will not unfold. But technically, this, they're touching, and Inventor's just not showing that edge right there. So I'll go ahead and do the bottom flange right there, back to 1 inch. Hit OK. Oh, I gotta double check, make sure it's, I think I'm gonna need it to have that air gap. Click that one right there. Now let's try a flange. Yeah, that looks better. I do need it to go around the outside of that. When it started, it was in the same material. That just can't happen. So I'm gonna go outside. You could go inside if you want to. We click OK. Flat pattern, make sure it's working. Yep, there's the other one. Excellent. Back to folded part. Okay, let's do the top of this side. Flange. 1 inch. Yep, nice and high above. So I click OK. And then this is where I run into a little bit of a hiccup. And I'm sure there's some other letters that'll be like this too. That if I do another flange, even 0.5, it's not going to give me a really nice, neat letter here. But what I can do is I can modify a flange after it's made. I could put a sketch on this. I can sketch, first I'll project some geometry so I know where this angled edge is. I'll transfer that back to the other side. There we go. Let me draw some lines to trace that out now. Corner, 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 and corner. Finish. Cut tool just like I showed in the demo, which is kind of like an extrude. Click OK. Cleans that up nice. And because it's the backside, we don't have to necessarily get fancy, and we could technically draw here and add the angle back and get that to work, but go to flat pattern. There's that angled corner down here. So that is working. And that is the easiest way I can explain it. Like I said, it's the backside of the letter. I'm okay with that. Now, if some people want to get a little bit fancier, because I know there's those people out there, Let's do a flange off the bottom. I'll show another way to do this down here. 1 inch, hit OK. And what I do here is I'm going to draw the tab I want that has the parallel sides. But this is where it's a little bit wonky, because if I just draw right on here, it joins to this material. So I actually have to create a work plane with a tiny, tiny, tiny air gap, like 0.001 enter. And if I look at it from the side, I have to zoom way in to even see that there's an air gap there, but there is. So now I can sketch on that surface, that work plane. Sorry. I can project the geometry of this K surface, and I can click on that corner point and just follow it up a little bit for now. I'll use dimensions in a minute to get my sizes right. Just laying out the general shape at the moment. And back across. Escape, dimension tool here, here, 1/2 inch is what my other tabs are. Finish sketch. Face tool, click on that, make sure it is going out and away, okay. And then I can hide this work plane. And I'm going to go to the bend tool and click here. And I hope this really works. Just got to rotate it around so I can see that other corner because things are so tiny here. And there we go. And sure enough, it's previewing. I click OK. I mean, in reality, this actually looks more realistic because you can see there's a gap there versus this other lower one where that surface is all joined. And to truly see if it works, let's go to flat pattern, and there we go. Look at that, we got the parallelogram happening up there for that flange. Looks good. But unfortunately, that's pretty much takes care of what we can easily do. From this point forward, we're going to be doing separate solid bodies to fill in our the three V's that the K has here, right? We got to fill in this gap from front to back, front to back, front to back. And we need some flanges off that filler piece so it can be glued in where it needs to be. So to do that, let's put a work plane right in the middle. There we go. And I'll just do this outside one where it's easy to see. And I'm going to project, oh sorry, let's do a sketch there. That makes sense. And I'm going to project geometry of like this inside edge and this inside edge, because that tells me where the K is happening at. And then I can do an offset out of 0.03 because that's the thickness of our material we're working with. Finish sketch. And we're going to do a contour flange. Zoom in, click on that. And we need a new part, right? So it's got new, we're not hook, this is not joining up with the existing material. It's going to be its own independent piece, so it needs to be its own independent solid in the model. We're going to center this, and let's go like a 0.9 dimension. I'm not even going to accept that yet. I want to see how it looks. What I'm looking for is to see that there's an air gap on each side, and this gets a little confusing because what you start looking at from the edges is some of these lined and divided areas represent radiuses of bends later on. So that looks pretty good right there. And this number can vary. I probably really should have pulled a measurement first, and I can do that actually right now. I can hit cancel. Let's pull a measurement from like, come on, this corner point to this corner point, 0.970. And if I envision that I'm going to have a 30 and a couple of flanges going in each way, that would take up 60. So, I mean, 910. So, yeah, 0.9 actually is a pretty good number. So now I'll redo that contour flange as a new solid, centered, 0.9. That should give me a little bit of airspace on both sides. Click OK and just accept. And when I'm talking about these other flanges is this right here. So now that I have that part in, now I can build the flange that goes in behind the material to be glued. And I don't need a definitely an inch, so just 0.5. And clearly it can't go all the way to the end or it's going to stick out in the air. So I'm going to hit my double arrows here. And I can either do a width or an offset. And I think I'll just do an offset. And I'm just guessing here if it's this end. Yep, sure enough. I can turn that. That looks pretty good, giving me some wiggle room there. And on the other end, I can do a 0 offset, right? It can go all the way to the corner. That's fine. If I want to be a little bit closer here, I could just try a 0.4. I mean, the closer you keep it, the stronger and the joint will be and everything. Click OK. And this is how we, you know what I didn't do? Check where my bend was happening. So double click it. There we go. Need that to be happening on the inside of the part, not up and through the same area. There we go. Hit OK. With a very little gap in there. That looks good. Now just repeat this all the way around. So let's quick flange. Here, 5. So you're going to offset. This time, 0. Okay. There we go. Just here. Okay. And okay, I actually remember to check on the last one that the bend was in the right position. So there, that little bit of work, a contour flange to get the main area filled in, and then just some regular flanges back to be tucked inside, is how we fill it in. If you wanted to put some of these flanges around the back side, that would be okay too. I don't mind what the back looks like. When you present these to me, I'm going to be looking at the front, you know, and the sides pieces, I guess. I want that to all look nice and clean. If the back has got a bunch of overlap parts, so be it. That'll work. Or if you want to take the time and tuck them in neatly like they're modeled, that looks nice too. Okay, so with that, you know, the other two V's are just more of the same thing. So let me hit save for the moment. Save that. So if I go to my flat pattern, you'll see that filler piece out here does not exist. That V that I made to fill in doesn't exist at all. So in order to get that onto a document at some point, I need to start a new part, new file, sheet metal, Inventor file, or inch file. And we go to the Manage tab. And we're going to do this Derived tool. And we got to go find the file that we were just working on. And when it comes in, we have a chance right now to select what bodies we want to work with. There we go. And this one, of course, it has both of them turned on, but I don't need the big K. I just need that filler piece I made here. So in this case, you know, I'd have 3 fillers technically. I would have to do this. I'd have to start 3 new files and use the Derived tool 3 times, once in each new file. Hit OK. And I'm just left with this one piece, visibility. There's that insert, so to speak, for that side. And if I go to sheet metal, flat pattern, there we go. Voila, as they say. And then that can go on my document. Okay. So again, like, you know, the letter A, B's, you know, any of those letters where we're going to have to fill in sides or fill in areas because we just can't fit it onto the main pattern. You know, if we can't fit it onto this main pattern, you're going to have to create these solid bodies to then do derived parts. And it works real easy. It's just a couple of clicks and it's in its own file now, and it can be its own flat pattern. And I know I go file, I do my save as, and make sure it's getting put where it needs to be. For video, you know, DER 1 for derived piece 1 or something like that. Save. Yep. This can't be in pattern mode when you're saving. And go on. And then now at this point, I do a file, new drawing file. Just skip this because we're going to delete all that stuff anyway. We're going to right click, edit sheet. Let's go to like a C size. That should be plenty big. We're going to delete the border. We're going to delete the title block. We're going to do a base view. And I got to bring this back over. And I can work with this. It's on here first. Main thing is switching to a flat pattern. There we go. Hit OK. Oh, and it was 1:1 scale. That's pretty important too. That puts that on. Another base view. I go find my other file. Right there, flat pattern. And I'm back. All right, I figured out what the problem was because I forgot. So what happens is that, except when you have all your extra solid bodies made, all your filler pieces, the flat pattern still recognizes just the first one, the original. But when you go to a drawing file, the drawing file is trying to process everything and it just gets confused. So after you've done all your derived files and you've made those separate pieces like this, what we're going to do is on this main or master files, we're going to take the end of folded part or end of part kind of icon and drag that back to where you finished that first solid body. And how I know that was because I remember the first contoured flange I did would have been my first solid body. So I go back up here, kind of rewind the part to just this state, and then now if I go to my drawing file, base view, now I have a flat pattern option. Make sure I'm 1:1 scale, not like that. And if it's not rotated the way you want, you hit the little drop arrow over there, custom view orientation, rotate at an angle, I'm going to guess 45 here. But it wasn't. So then you can go to like 10. There we go. And then I hit the big green check mark. Oh, yeah, okay. Big green check mark. Looks good. And I just fit that in as needed, of course. And get all our parts and pieces on here and save them. And then I've got some pictures a little bit later on the website to show you how to manipulate any lines we need to for laser cutting. Because if we laser cut these, we're going to almost cut them off. Okay, so we got to change those patterns out a little bit. But anyway, hopefully that all helps. I know it's a little bit long. There's so many scenarios and letters, but make your basic shapes, connect them as much as you can with easy parts. Then do contour flanges to fill in the front to back gaps with some regular flanges in between. But make sure those are new solid bodies, and then eventually we can take those solid bodies and put them into new parts by using the Derived tool, which is new, and then we can do a little bit of documenting and get this all wrapped up and hopefully have a nice little project when we're done and something again that you can take with you that you've designed in our room. Okay, good luck. Talk to me with any questions you have, of course, and hopefully everything works out.